everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. With more Oklahomans interested in growing their own food, fruit trees are becoming more popular in our state. Today, OSU Extension fruit and nut expert Becky Carroll discusses some of the fruit trees that grow best in our state.
Well, you know, several years ago, it seemed like everybody had fruit trees in their backyard. And then there was a period where people kind of stopped planting them, and now people are wanting to grow their own food and have things that are readily available to their, in their backyard so they can grow their own food. Probably the easiest and most adapted to Oklahoma would be things like apples and pears. And some of those are going to be more adapted than others. So you have to really look at the varieties, and if they're disease resistant, it'll be a benefit not having to spray for as many diseases. But usually apples and pears are more adapted to our clay soils. And then if you're looking at things like peaches and some of the prunus type of fruit trees like peaches and plums, nectarines, apricots, those like to have more sandy soil. And so you really need to pay attention to where you're planting them. Even just in your yard, you can plant one in one location and it'll do great, and then just a few feet in another direction and it may be too wet, and so that tree will lose its leaves and die. And we saw a lot of that this past year with as much wet all the weather that we had. If you have a population of deer around your area, so you see deer in your lawn or in your pasture area where you're wanting to plant these trees, you need to have some plan in place, because once those trees start to grow and they push out new foliage, that is like candy to deer, and they will eat that foliage just as soon as it puts out new leaves. And so you may have to look at a hot wire fence, and it's not just one wire around. You're going to have maybe every foot have a hot wire up several, maybe 7 or 8 feet sometimes to keep them out of there. And deer love apple trees, not just the fruit, but they actually eat the wood. And so I've seen a fairly large tree eaten down to be a little toothpick, basically, because it was a variety that they really liked. We have to deal with birds, especially for grapes. We're going to have big issues with birds, but also, with our fruit trees. Some other things that like fruits would be kind of bats or possums, raccoons, anything. It seems like everything likes. Squirrels are a big issue with fruits as well. Having some type of scare tactic out there, something that's flashy or something may scare away some type of pest. But sometimes we may have to harvest just a few days early than we want to, because those animals, they know when that fruit's ripe, and they'll start harvesting before you get it. We have a backyard fruit tree workshop, so it's going to be specifically for new growers or for homeowners that want to learn about how to select what kind of fruit tree is going to do best in their location, or what varieties are going to be best. And so people will have opportunity to come out and plant a tree if they'd like. And we have a few apple trees, pear trees, and peaches where they can practice pruning. The field day is on February 15th, so it's a Saturday from 1 to 4, and it's going to be at the Cimarron Valley Research Station just north of Perkins. For more information about the field day, you can go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Hi, Wes Lee here with your weekly Mesonet weather report. This was an interesting week of weather for Oklahoma. On Wednesday, the main part of the state received its first snowstorm. Preliminary totals from the Norman Forecast Center had snow totals of anywhere between 1 and 8 inches. Temperatures following the storm were some of the coldest we have seen in a while, with the majority of the state dropping down into the teens. Before this cold front, most of 2020 had the state experiencing a fairly warm winter. This chart shows the average daily temperature since the start of the year with the dark line, and the 15-year average in the blue fill. There are definitely more days above normal than below normal. This stretch of warm weather has producers with dual-purpose wheat for grazing and grain forced to make some decisions soon. Once the wheat reaches the growth stage, called the first hollow stem, cattle left on grazing it can severely impact grain production. First hollow stem is where the grain head moves from the ground level up to where there is about a half an inch of hollow stem below it. Scouting ungrazed area of the field and splitting stems with a knife is the only way to know for sure the stage of growth. Fortunately, Mesonet has a product to help predict when producers should be out scouting their dual-purpose wheat fields. It is called the First Hollow Stem Advisor, and it consists of 3 models, one for early, middle, or late maturing wheat varieties. You begin by picking your planted wheat variety, and the model counts soil heat units from late December to the current day and plots it on a map. The Wednesday map for early varieties show that the southern half of the state has exceeded the time to begin scouting. We recommend scouting when it predicts 5% first hollow stem. This is shown by any color other than blue. The red colors show when 50% first hollow stem is expected. Grazing past this point might already be impacting grain production. With middle maturing varieties, mostly the southern tier of counties have reached the time needed to begin scouting. And looking at the late varieties, the state is still mostly blue, but that could change soon. The tool has a projection feature built into it that allows you to print a map with 1 or 2 week predictions. These are based on long-term averages and not forecast. Here is the 2-week map for early varieties. You can see the majority of the state is at or nearing the red 50% projection. The projection for middle varieties has about the southern third of the state reaching the red or higher category. For late varieties, most of the state is still blue, but some red is starting to show in the bottom tier of counties. You can also use the tool to just look at a particular Mesonet site. This graph is for Watonga and early varieties. It projects reaching the 50% line about February 20th. Bottom line, this doesn't appear to be one of the years we can graze cattle on into March without expecting grain reduction. That's it for this week. See you next week on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Time now to talk plants. You can help OSU agricultural researchers identify plants around Oklahoma and in turn help others.
If you've ever wondered what a plant was and needed to identify it, one thing that you can do is send that in to your local county extension office. So when we're trying to identify these plants, we do need a few pictures to help us out, depending on if you're dealing with a grass or a broadleaf. And on our grasses, some of our most helpful portion is going to be the collar of our grass. And this is where our blade is actually running into that stem. There's a few features there that can really help us out identify. And also, if there is any sort of flowering structure on our plant, that's going to be great as well. The more pictures, the better, preferably not 30 feet away. If we can get close to those plants, we'll be able to identify more characteristics. And all of this will help in the overall identification of that plant. Try to make sure that the photos are not blurry, because that's really problematic. If they have any sort of blurriness to them, those fine details are hard to point out. If you're really concerned about what the plant might be, some precautions would be to put gloves on if you're not sure what it is. We do have quite a few plants that have some oils that can cause some dermatitis issues, things like poison ivy or poison sumac. So if you don't know what it is and you're worried it might be something that does have some sort of residue on it that could cause problems, definitely wear gloves. We also have quite a few plants that have some type of spine on them, so that's another time that you might need heavier leather gloves before you pick those plants up as well. If you have either a sample or pictures, take those in to your county extension office, and if they are not aware what that is, they can always send it off to a specialist on campus. But if you do bring a live plant sample in, please make sure that it's in a paper bag, not plastic, because it will start to mold, and then it's really hard to identify a plant once it has mold covering that.
We're joined now by Dr. Eric DeVuyst, our extension economist. And Eric, you and the team have just released a new decision and education tool designed to help people out with the Farm Bill. Congratulations. It's kind of been a labor of love, right?
Yep, this is a lot of hours go into putting this together. We have data for 48 states, and every county in those states that has crops, we've got their historical yields in. We have to clean the files up so that things like county names match between different databases, between different groups at RMA, FSA, etc. And so the group at Kansas State and Amy Hagerman and myself here at Oklahoma State have put a lot of time in. We're very glad to have this thing put to bed.
So let's give our viewers an idea of what this means for producers in Oklahoma. When they log on to this tool and to learn more, what kind of things are they going to find?
Okay, so they can download it. It's an Excel-based tool. It's big because there's a lot of data in there. But they're going to enter information about their farm, about the crops, the county they're in, etc. And that populates a database with all kinds of FSA and RMA yields that and historical prices for the crops that they've chosen, for the county they've chosen. And then it's going to allow them to go through and compare the options under the Farm Bill. The primary ones are called ag risk coverage at the county level and price loss coverage. There's also the ARC individual coverage. Our tool doesn't handle that well because we don't have the complete data set for how the T yields are handled in that. But fortunately, there's a group out of University of Illinois, the Farm Doc group. They've got a nice tool that will help people with that as well.
So all of this is coming out in just the right time for some upcoming deadlines. Let's remind folks and kind of tell them how that ties in with things going on at the FSA office.
Right, so there's a deadline to sign up for the new Farm Bill, the 2018 Farm Bill, on March 15. And so you need to contact your local FSA office, make an appointment to get in and do that. This year, the Farm Bill's a little different. Your sign up will be for 2 years. You can sign up crop by crop this time. And then after 2 years, you can change your election annually through the end of the Farm Bill.
So just like the Farm Bill, these decision tools have to be tailored each time a new Farm Bill comes out, right?
Yep, so we've just finished this one, and very soon I will be working on the update because in 2 years, producers are going to have a decision to make. What do I want to do now? And so we'll have to have a new tool on the shelf ready for them.
Right. Well, we're thankful to you and your colleagues for getting this rolling and hope producers can take advantage of it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. And for a link to that decision and education tool for the Farm Bill, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Last week on the Cow-Calf Corner, we visited with you about what happens to a baby calf as they go through a difficult birth, and we called it respiratory acidosis. Today, what we want to visit about is how to help correct that. Getting that calf started breathing as soon as possible is very, very important. Some producers, I think incorrectly, will be tempted to hold the calf up by his hind legs perhaps to get some mucus or some fluids out of the respiratory tract. Worse yet, I've even talked to ranchers that would like to put the calf's hind legs and hang him over a rail fence, thinking again they're helping the calf by draining those fluids out. Actually, I think they're being counterproductive in both cases. You see, what we need to have happen is for that calf to start breathing. That means that the diaphragm muscle, which is down in the back part of where his lungs are, it has to contract to pull the lungs open to bring in the oxygen. If we're putting that calf's hind legs over that rail or holding him upside down, we're actually kind of impairing that calf's diaphragm's ability to contract and open up those lungs. What I'd much rather see us do is to just grab a stiff straw someplace and tickle that calf's nostrils very, very briskly to move that diaphragm muscle to open up the lungs, get oxygen in, and get that calf started breathing. Once we do that, that calf will hopefully start to pant, breathe very, very rapidly. It's a natural response because his body is wanting to correct that situation of the hypoxia or the low amount of oxygen and the excess of the carbon dioxide and some of its byproducts. So the next time you're working with a baby calf that you've had to pull, came through a difficult birth, in a lot of cases those backwards calves really fit into this category, we want to just make sure that we get the nostrils cleaned out, the mouth cleaned out of any excess mucus or fluids, and then let's try that approach of tickling him briskly. See if you can make him snort and to cough. You'll get that calf started breathing and save that calf, get him off to a better start, and that way you'll have him available to sell next fall at calf weaning time. We hope this tip helps you. We really encourage you to go to the SUNUP website. That's sunup.okstate.edu. Look under show links and download our brochure that the late Dr. Sparks and I wrote several years ago about helping cows and heifers at calving time. It gives you a lot of great information that I think will really be valuable to you. We look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Corn's actually been in the news lately, and Kim, how are the projected prices looking for this upcoming cropping season?
Well, if you look at Perrington, Texas, about $4.10. That's 10 cents over the December contract. In Medford, Oklahoma, about $3.60. That's 30 cents under that contract price. Now, the good news is, if you look at, say, over the last 5 or 6 years, the August and September average price is right at about $3.60 for Medford and $4.10 for Perrington. So the corn prices are about average.
Are we seeing any more corn production around the globe?
Well, if you look at world production, say go back to 2000, world production was 23.8 billion bushels. It's increased to 43.7 this year. That's an 84% increase. United States production went from 9 billion to 14 billion. That's about a 44% increase. So you've seen production in other countries. The good news is the world corn use has kept up just right at with production.
Where are we seeing those big increases? Because I mean that's pretty substantial.
Well, again, go back to 2000 and look at world production. The United States had about 41% of world's production, China 20, other 30, Brazil 6%, Argentina 3%, and Ukraine at 0%. So you had Argentina, Brazil, and Ukraine producing about 9%, and the United States about 41%. Now come forward to 2019. U.S. production has declined to 33%. China increased to 24%. They went from importing country to self-sufficient in corn. The big change is Argentina, Brazil, and Ukraine. They increased from 9% to 15%.
It's quite an increase. Are these countries holding on to the corn, or are they putting it on the market?
Well, if you look at the changes in world exports, you go back to 2000, again, the United States was exporting 67% of the world's corn exports. Argentina 15%, Brazil 2%, and Ukraine essentially 0%. So you had the Argentina, Brazil, and Ukraine exporting 17%. Now come to 2019, you've got the United States decline from 67% to 34%. 33% decline in world's exports. You look at Ukraine, Brazil, and Argentina, they increased from 17% to 52%. In other words, a big change in who's exporting the market. And you've seen Argentina, especially Brazil and Ukraine, increasing their exports. Now, one other bad news there is that I just read a report that Russia is going to plant more acres of corn this year.
So if Russia starts planting more corn, how does that impact the wheat prices?
Well, if you look at the increases in exports or the increased export competition, naturally that had an impact on our prices. They're probably slightly lower than they would have been otherwise. But you go back to world production, world use has increased almost 1-to-1, so that prices, well, probably about where they would have been. I think what we've seen is less volatile prices. In other words, if we have a short crop, prices don't increase as much, and if we have a large crop, they don't decline as much because the market is distributed more evenly around the world.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kim Anderson, Grain Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Since it's a little bit cold outside, I thought that I would share a little bit of information about coffee. Coffee originated in Ethiopia, but the exact circumstances that resulted in its discovery are unknown. Historians suggest that coffee spread from Ethiopia through trade with Arab merchants, and by the end of the 15th century, coffee had been introduced to Persia, Egypt, Turkey, and North Africa. Coffee became so popular and such a lucrative commodity that the Turkish Empire forbade the selling of viable beans. Only beans that had either been boiled in water or partially roasted to prevent germination could be traded. The two main types of coffee plants used for commercial production today are Arabica and Robusta. Arabica produces a coffee that is higher in quality. However, it grows at an altitude between 3,000 and 6,000 feet and develops slowly. Robusta produces a lower quality coffee that has a harsher flavor. However, it grows at lower altitudes, is more disease resistant, and also produces higher yields. The distinct aroma and flavor of coffee also develop through the roasting process. A combination of aroma, appearance, temperature, and sound is used to determine the type and degree of roast. Light roast coffee beans have an orange-brown color, non-oily surface, and mild flavor. Medium roast coffee beans have a medium brown color, a non-oily surface, and stronger flavor. This also happens to be the type of roast that is generally preferred in the United States. Medium dark roast coffee beans have a rich, dark color with some oil on the surface and a strong flavor with a slightly bitter aftertaste. Dark roast coffee beans have a very dark, almost black color and have a very shiny, oily surface and very strong, distinct, bitter flavor. The rich, hearty taste of coffee has helped maintain its popularity all the way from ancient Ethiopia to your cup today. For more information, please visit sunup.okstate.edu or fapc.biz.
Finally today, Oklahoma, of course, is home to all sorts of wild animals, including bobcats. SUNUP's Ed Barron travels to Pittsburgh County to see how Oklahoma State University researchers are studying bobcat populations.
On a foggy morning in eastern Oklahoma, Nathan Proudman is on the prowl.
In Oklahoma, the bobcat population is quite heavily harvested, over 4,500 bobcats harvested annually.
But as of yet, there's no clear way to monitor bobcat populations in Oklahoma.
Current monitoring methods include the selling of furs from trappers and also roadside surveys, which the latter of which have shown a decline in bobcats. But these methods may not necessarily reflect true bobcat trends, so we're hoping to provide a non-invasive alternative method that is independent of the fur trade.
That method involves setting up traps to collect bobcat hairs.
We use these hair snare cubbies that are little tent-shaped things that has scent lure on the inside, and then gun bore cleaning brushes on the openings of the little tent. And so when the bobcat or any other mammal goes in and to investigate, they leave hair on the gun bore brushes.
A simple method for an elusive animal. But what can a bunch of fur balls tell us about bobcats?
When we collect the hairs, we can actually clip the follicles, the hair follicles that come out with some of the hairs, and we're doing genetic studies with those. So we'll actually be able to identify individuals when they leave hair at the cubbies, and that way we can actually estimate the population size.
Many people believe bobcats are nothing more than pests, but bobcats play an important role in Oklahoma's ecosystem.
Bobcats are pretty ecologically important. They predate on lots of small mammal species, especially ones that are considered pests.
That really helps to keep the rodent populations down and control the rodent populations. Coyotes also eat those, but they are not as effective at eating the small rodents. They tend to eat larger species, so the bobcats can be really beneficial.
Oklahoma is one of the highest ranking states in the nation for bobcat pelt sales. Nathan and Dr. Fairbanks hope their research will lead to better bobcat management.
In Oklahoma, because the harvest of bobcats is so large every year, and we really don't have a handle on what the population is.
So this project is not only trying to find a way to measure the abundances of bobcats, but also allows us to determine the ecological patterns of occurrence and space use, which is quite important for landscape ecology as well as management.
In Pittsburgh County, I'm Ed Barron.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime on our website at sunup.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.